In 1944, at a conference called Bretton Woods, the world established a new system. The American dollar would be the global reserve currency. Every nation would peg their currency to the dollar. Every dollar would be backed by American gold. The arrangement gave America unparalleled power. America could print dollars and the world would accept them. In 1971, when America ran out of gold, President Nixon ended the gold standard. The dollar remained reserve currency anyway. The world was dependent on dollars. By 2022, when Russia invaded Ukraine, America used the dollar as a weapon. America froze Russia's foreign currency reserves. America cut Russia from SWIFT, the international payment system. America sanctioned Russian banks. Russia couldn't access dollars. Russia couldn't trade internationally. The freezing of $300 billion in Russian assets was possible because those assets were held in Western financial institutions, American and European banks, and denominated in dollars and euros. If Russia had held its reserves in rubles or gold within its own borders, the freezing would have been impossible. The archives show a power structure so perfectly designed that it took 78 years to reveal itself. America didn't need military dominance to enforce its will. America needed control of the payment system. By controlling the dollar and the infrastructure that moves dollars, America could freeze any nation's economy instantly. This is the Gilded Archives, where the most powerful weapons look like banking infrastructure because the infrastructure is the weapon. The records show a system established in 1945 when the International Monetary Fund was created to manage the Bretton Woods arrangement. The IMF had one mission: enforce the dollar standard. Nations that maintained the dollar peg received benefits. Nations that violated the arrangement faced sanctions. The arrangement was voluntary on paper. It was mandatory in practice. A nation couldn't participate in global trade without a dollar-based currency peg. By 1960, nearly every nation in the Western free market system had pegged its currency to the dollar. The Soviet Union and Eastern Bloc nations participating in Comecon, as well as China, remained outside this arrangement. The dollar became the infrastructure of global commerce within the Western system. All international transactions within this sphere required dollars. All dollars flowed through American banks. America controlled the infrastructure. The architecture has 3 layers. First, the currency peg. By controlling the dollar, America controlled global money supply within the participating nations. When America wanted to encourage spending, America printed dollars. When America wanted to restrict spending, America raised interest rates. Every nation's economy was responsive to American policy. A country that wanted to be independent had to either develop an alternative reserve currency or accumulate massive gold reserves. No country could do both. The currency peg created a system where nations appeared independent but were actually dependent on American monetary policy. Second, SWIFT, the Society for Worldwide Interbank Financial Telecommunication. SWIFT is a messaging system that coordinates international bank transfers. A bank in London wants to send money to a bank in Tokyo. The banks communicate through SWIFT. SWIFT doesn't move money. SWIFT communicates instructions. But SWIFT is controlled by America and European allies. SWIFT messages specify which currency is being transferred. The vast majority of global trade is invoiced in dollars, though the euro also accounts for a significant portion of payments. A bank that's disconnected from SWIFT can't send international messages. In 2022, major Russian banks were disconnected from SWIFT. Russia couldn't tell banks how to transfer money. Russia's international transactions became impossible. The disconnection was possible because SWIFT is American and European infrastructure. Third, dollar-denominated assets. Every nation maintains foreign currency reserves, dollars and other currencies held in Western banks. Russia held $300 billion in reserves, primarily in European financial institutions. When America and its allies sanctioned Russia, they froze the reserves. Russia couldn't access its own money. The seizure was legal because the money was held in Western institutions. The money was held there because the dollar is the global reserve currency. Nations hold reserves in dollars because dollars are accepted everywhere. The arrangement created a situation where nations held the thing that could be taken from them. The data reveals the power structure with precision. By 2024, the dollar is involved in approximately 88% of all foreign exchange trades. Approximately 60% of the world's foreign currency reserves are held in dollars. Approximately 90% of cross-border payments flow through SWIFT. A nation that wants to trade internationally must use dollars or dollar-based systems. A nation that wants to store wealth safely often holds dollars. A nation that wants to send money globally must use SWIFT, 3 layers of American and allied infrastructure control global finance. The comparison to historical power reveals the mechanism. In 1600, the Dutch East India Company controlled global trade through naval supremacy. The company had ships. The company had armies. The company physically controlled trade routes. The company's power was visible. By 2000, America controlled global trade through currency and payment infrastructure. America had no fleets physically blocking trade routes. America didn't need to. The infrastructure was the power. The power was invisible. By 2015, Russia had watched the system work and it began preparing for disconnection. Russia accumulated gold reserves. Russia developed alternative payment systems. Russia created its own banking messaging system called SPFS. By 2022, when sanctions came, Russia had approximately 2,000 tons of gold. The gold was in Russia. The gold couldn't be seized. Russia could trade gold for goods. Russia could bypass SWIFT through alternative payment systems. But the friction was enormous. A country can't feed itself by trading gold. Russia faced an economy designed to require dollars. Russia had alternatives. The alternatives were inferior. The architect of this system was Henry Dexter White, the American economist who designed Bretton Woods. White understood something that most economists didn't. Power doesn't come from having the largest army. Power comes from controlling the infrastructure that everyone depends on. If you control money, you control nations. If you control payment systems, you control trade. White designed a system where America controlled both. The system looked like a voluntary international arrangement. It was actually a mechanism for American dominance. Every time you make an international transfer, you engage with this mechanism. You send money to a relative overseas. The money passes through SWIFT. The message is in dollars or is converted to dollars. Your bank tells SWIFT to instruct another bank to deliver currency. SWIFT confirms the instruction. The transfer completes. You experience a financial transaction. You don't experience the American control of the infrastructure. You don't experience that America can freeze the transfer if the recipient is on a sanctions list. You don't experience that the transfer is possible only because America permits it. The infrastructure works so smoothly that its power was invisible. But there's a second layer the records reveal. Countries have attempted to create alternative systems. The European Union created Instex to bypass SWIFT for Iran trade. The system failed because most banks preferred using SWIFT. China created CIPS, a cross-border payment system. CIPS remains marginal because the yuan is not a widely accepted reserve currency. Russia and China created their own payment arrangements. The alternative systems exist, but are inferior. They're inferior because they lack the infrastructure that dollars provide. The dollar is accepted everywhere. Alternative currencies are accepted nowhere. The infrastructure advantage is permanent. It requires nothing more than the world's continued dependency on dollars. We are at stage 4 of the currency weapon consolidation pattern. Stage 1 was the establishment of Bretton Woods in 1944. Stage 2 was the end of gold backing in 1971, but continuation of dollar dominance. Stage 3 was the expansion of SWIFT into universal payment infrastructure in the 1990s to 2000s. Stage 4, where we are now, is the weaponization of the system. America has frozen assets of Russia, Iran, Venezuela, and Afghanistan. The freezing demonstrated the power. Stage 5, which comes next, is the challenge to the system. Nations will accelerate development of alternatives. By 2030, analysts project that approximately 20% of international transactions will use non-dollar infrastructure. By 2035, that figure is estimated to reach 30%. The dollar will remain dominant, but will share power with alternatives. The American monopoly will have eroded. The 3 paths forward require acknowledging the system's completeness. First, accept dollar dominance. The dollar provides stability. Merchants accept dollars everywhere. Travelers can exchange dollars anywhere. Businesses can store wealth in dollars. The dominance is mutually beneficial. Accepting this means recognizing that American hegemony requires dollar dominance. If the dollar lost reserve status, American power would decline. Most nations would choose stable global currency over American hegemony. Most don't realize they've made that choice because the dominance is invisible. Second, resist through alternative currencies. The European Union uses the euro. China uses the yuan. These alternatives exist, but they're limited in acceptance. A merchant in India won't readily accept euros. A business in Brazil won't store wealth in yuan. The alternatives work within regional blocks, but not globally. Resistance is possible, but fractional. Third, position by understanding which currencies will survive the transition. The dollar will remain dominant through 2035. By 2040, the dollar might share power equally with the euro and yuan. Positioning means holding reserves in multiple currencies, doing business with multiple currency zones, not concentrating dependency on a single currency system. The deeper protection lies in what the archives show always survives currency centralization: goods and productive assets. When currencies collapse, tangible assets retain value. The records show this consistently. When the Soviet ruble collapsed, people with productive land and goods survived. When the Venezuelan bolivar hyperinflated, people with gold and property survived. When the American dollar loses reserve status, people with gold, land, and productive capacity will survive. Paper promises, denominated in any currency, become worthless. Production never does. The pattern says what comes next. Projections suggest that by 2028, BRICS nations aim to launch a new reserve currency mechanism backed by commodities. The currency won't displace the dollar immediately, but it will create an alternative. By 2032, estimates suggest approximately 15% of global trade will settle in new alternative currencies. By 2035, sanctions will become less effective because alternatives exist. By 2040, America will lose the ability to unilaterally freeze assets. The power will have distributed across multiple currency systems. The monopoly will have eroded. You send money internationally. The transfer happens instantly because SWIFT exists. The transfer is secure because dollars are trusted. The transfer is possible because the system permits it. The infrastructure is so smooth that its power is invisible. But the power is substantial. America can freeze the transfer. America can reject the transfer. America can tax the transfer. America controls much of the infrastructure. When America uses that control against Russia, the system reveals itself. The infrastructure is a weapon. The weapon works effectively. It requires only that the world continues using dollars and SWIFT. By 2035, that dependency will have weakened. By 2040, alternatives will have emerged. The consolidation that took 78 years to establish might take 30 years to distribute. If this pattern revealed something you'd never seen before, subscribe to the Gilded Archives. History's records reveal how monetary power works. The dollar system isn't unique. It's one iteration of a pattern that repeats across centuries. Understanding it allows you to see the pattern in the next monetary power consolidation, the next currency becoming dominant, the next infrastructure becoming a weapon. The records are specific. The mechanism repeats. The outcomes are predictable. We're just watching it unfold.